Welcome to Season 6 of the Excel Still More podcast. I am your host, Chris Emerson, and I am here to encourage you in your walk with the Lord, and I'm glad you've joined. Our program continues to be sponsored by Cunningham Financial Group. John is a good friend, and he's helped me and my family in everything from stock and mutual fund investing to annuities, life insurance, and retirement planning. I certainly commend him to you. If you have needs in any of those areas, you can reach him at 205-326-7364. Thank you again for your ongoing encouragement and support. Let's get started. Hey, welcome to the final episode of 2024. The launch date for today's content is December 30th, so it seems fitting for me to say happy holidays. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas week and you're excited about the new year, which kicks off in just a couple of days. As we close in on that new year, I'll keep this as brief as possible, but I just want to say a couple of things to you. Number one, thank you. Thank you for listening this year, for sticking with the program, for sharing it with your friends, and just really for all your support. It's pretty incredible that we've been doing this for 6 full years. It is really rare for podcasts to make it past the first 3 months, much less 6 complete seasons. And I have really wrestled this year with whether or not we should embark upon season 7. And there are a couple of reasons for that. I've started writing some devotionals and I have some other projects next year. And eventually, you just have to make a couple of cuts to make room for other things. But really, for me, what's more important than that is the quality of the content. You ever seen one of those TV shows that just goes on too long? And it's almost like you can tell that the writers are just phoning it in at this point. That is not what we want to do. But with that being said, I do want to start 2025 releasing Monday episodes with more of a see how it goes mentality. I mean, technically, we launched in late January of 2019, so we need to make it at least to there to say that we fully filled in 6 years. But right now, the plan is to just keep moving forward if the content is clean, but also be willing to pause or take gaps or stop if we need to. One other thing about the podcast, you will see a significant change starting on Monday, January the 6th. In addition to the regular Monday episode, we will be releasing 3-minute episodes. These are related to the daily Bible devotional reads, the book that we recently published and released. They are companion pieces for reading the New Testament straight through, Matthew through Revelation, each weekday throughout 2025. You do not have to purchase the book in order to enjoy it. In fact, mainly I'm reading from that book in the podcast. But I do ask you to give that a go. If you have not read the New Testament through in a year, in a long time, or ever, this coming year is the one for you. You can either read in the morning and then listen to the episode, which will have application and prayer and questions, or you can listen to the episode first. It'll release at like 5 a.m., and then you can read the text afterwards. In connection with that, next year we will be releasing in the spring Volume 2 and in the summer Volume 3 so that ultimately we will have gone through every single New Testament chapter, including for each a recap paragraph, an application section, a prayer, and 3 questions to govern the day. Okay, so that's an update on where we are, and thank you again for your wonderful support. What I think we need to do to end out the year is revisit Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People just one more time. I'm limiting the series to just 3 parts when there really could be at least a half a dozen. So let me say this, if you enjoy this content, if you hear things and think that's exactly what I need to explore further, then I highly recommend you go out and you get Dale Carnegie's book from 1936 or 7 and put it on your reading list for 2025. All right, so today's episode covers a major chunk, the main chunk of the middle of Carnegie's book, and it really zones in on that idea of how to win people over to your way of thinking, which naturally is born out of this environment where initially, at least, someone else does not agree with you. They think very differently than you do. Really, today's episode is just about conflict resolution. How do we move past disagreements? How do we find common ground? How do we speak to one another? And are there a few tips and strategies I can employ in dealing with family members or church members or neighbors or coworkers that I haven't thought of before? We won't use any time today recapping the earlier episodes, but just a few weeks back, we released Friends and People Parts 1 and 2, and there were really a lot of great little pieces there that really lay the groundwork for handling disagreements by governing the way that you handle everyone. So keep in mind you can always go back and visit those. But today there's this line right in the middle of the book, and I think it's a beautiful place to start, and it simply says this: you cannot win an argument. The book goes on to give all kinds of cool examples from the Civil War and the early 20th century, but I don't think you need those. This short statement falls under the category of some things are true whether you believe them or not, so you would do well to start believing them. Once we get to argument phase, once our body posture, our tone, the way we think about each other, the way we even approach communicating has reached this point of adversarial spirit, in almost every case, progress and a positive outcome are impossible. This isn't saying that you can't feel disagreeable. I mean, if someone doesn't agree with you or they state it in a certain way that isn't particularly kind, you're going to feel something. But once that feeling turns into thoughts and those thoughts turn into words and those words begin or fuel an argument, you've already lost. I think more crucially, everybody loses. And since in most disagreeable situations, there are more people involved than just the two having the conversation, that's kind of tragic, isn't it? There is this great line from Benjamin Franklin in the chapter. I do need to give you this. He said, "If you argue and rankle and contradict, you may achieve a victory sometimes, but it will be an empty victory because you will never get your opponent's goodwill." Now, as I read that, I think, you know what? Some people don't care about goodwill. They just want to win. They just want everyone to do what they want them to do. But not you, right? Not me, not Christians. We're always interested in goodwill. I don't just want my wife to go along with what I want to do and what I want her to do. I want her to do it with me in a spirit of trust. I don't just want to settle an argument by winning it or by exhausting the other person. I want them to trust me, or in many cases, I want to trust them more if we end up going their direction. So we're going to look at a handful, and I'll list them all in the show notes, of things that you can do to help in difficult or crucial conversations, but you've got to get this first thing down: avoid an argument at nearly all costs. Well, you might be thinking, how do we do this? Do we just ignore the problem? That is certainly not usually the best course of action. But there was this article that Carnegie talks about in the book called Bits and Pieces, and it lists methods for how to keep a disagreement from becoming an argument. Let me walk you through these 9 things pretty quickly, and I'll have them listed, but see if they flow well. First of all, welcome the disagreement. And not just because your attitude or outlook about all of this needs to be positive, but because if everyone around you agreed with you on everything, you would never get any smarter. And every disagreement is an opportunity for you to learn something and maybe even fix mistakes. Number 2, distrust your first instinctive impression. I've come to believe that initial impulse instinct stinks. It's usually self-focused or defensive. It certainly doesn't even think about what the right way to handle it might be or plan out words for a good outcome. And while this point isn't saying toss out that initial feeling that you have, it is saying don't fully trust it like the first thing you feel must be the authentic thing and everything else is manipulated. It might just be that the first thing you feel is so burdened by bias that it demands further investigation. Number 3 is a pretty simple one. Control your temper. If you're someone who reacts very quickly, who elevates a thing instantly, and I think there are some people who don't even really operate well unless they've elevated it to some massive thing, work on not being that person. So those two really connect, just the idea of being very careful of that initial outburst or reaction. Number 4, listen first. This was a big part of the earlier lessons we had, Friends and People Part 1 and 2. So many disagreements aren't even speaking the same language because they aren't representing the other person fairly, or it doesn't have all of the facts. How often have we built positions or done things to solve a problem that wasn't even the real problem? Become a great listener so that when you make your point, you make it accurately. It's not in this list, but we've talked about it before. Ask questions. Ask enough questions until you know exactly what's going on. Number 5, look for areas of agreement. In most cases, there's a lot of yes that can take place. A lot of things you agree on, a lot of even nuances in the very thing that you don't agree where you really do. I know when someone comes up to me and they go, Chris, I heard you say something in your Bible class. I disagree with you because, and then they give this long answer where like 80% of it I totally agree with. I usually come in and go, look, man, I entirely agree with that first point that you're making. And clearly I was not as articulate as I should have been, or you'd have seen that for most of this, we're on exactly the same page. Now, that doesn't mean we're on the same page all the way down the line, but in most people's mind, 5 degrees of separation feels like 180 degrees of separation. I've dealt with this with guys, and I'm like, wait a minute. We almost entirely see this the same. We love God and the Bible the same. Let's make sure we're really excited about that fact for a little while, and that'll shape the way we approach that 5 degrees that's left. Number 6 is be honest. Look for areas where you can admit error and just say so. Apologize for your mistakes, or if you weren't clear, it will help disarm your, quote, opponent and reduce defensiveness. Most times when disagreements become egregious and long-lasting, the defensiveness on both sides is so high that nobody's giving an inch. Anybody looking on can see that each of them could stand to move about a foot, but there comes a point when no one admits that they're wrong. I'll add this here because I need to work on most everything here, but this is one where it's been really frustrating for me to talk to people where we clearly have disagreements and we're trying to continue to be friends, and I'm willing to apologize for misunderstandings, or maybe I crossed the line here, and there are some people that will not apologize for anything ever. And that's probably associated with pride, and we're not here today to talk about those people, but I'm studying them to try to make sure that I don't end up in that boat. And I just want you to think about how obvious that is to others so that you don't end up like that as well. Number 7, and I'll list all 9 of these in a minute, promise to think over your opponent's ideas and study them carefully and mean it. Now, this is an interesting one because if you're having a disagreement with someone where you don't really care that much, it's not particularly important to you whether they're right or you're right, then just bail. Be cordial and kind and admit that they might be right or that it's not something you really have been passionate about and move on. But if it is something very serious to you, and this is often the case in families with really a long-standing past that they're working through, or among God's people because we're so passionate about what we see in Scripture, number 7 is huge. If you walk away from that person going, you know what, this is a really big deal, and what they've said is not what I think or believe, then your next move needs to be prayerfulness and really investigating what they're saying. I learned a long time ago, and I can't remember what book it was from, but I need to be able to present their case maybe even better than they present it, at least in my own mind. And then I can really see where they're coming from, may just admit that they're right, or at least that I'm not sure, or if I feel like I need to try to win them over still, I'll have a real clear sense on what I need to address. Number 8, thank them sincerely for their interest. Have you thought about the fact that if someone is willing to approach you or converse with you or disagree with you, to engage with you, then they do have at least some interest in the relationship they have with you? There are plenty of people who just won't talk to you anymore, who don't want you around and who don't want to talk about it. Now, I guess the good news there is that you're not liable to get into an argument with them. But the bad news is resolution is impossible, and there probably is some big blow-up coming down the line. If someone is really willing to engage with you on things that one or both of you considers very important, then be sure to thank them for their patience, their time, and their interest. Now let me recap these before we get to number 9. Number 1, welcome the disagreement. Number 2, distrust your first instinctive impression. Number 3, control your temper. Number 4, listen first. Number 5, look for areas of agreement. Number 6, be honest, especially with your mistakes. Number 7, promise to think over your opponent's ideas and study them carefully. Number 8, thank them sincerely for their interest. And then number 9, postpone action to give both sides time to think through the problem. I don't know if that sounds like a powerful ending to the list, but it really is. How many times do we skip the step where we just go think about it, pray about it, look at the problem from different angles, and try to seek solutions? Instead, we make a quick, unthought-out response. We speak with an adversarial spirit. We make some verbal proclamation that now we're going to defend to the death. Instead, we need to go think about it. There are some great questions here at the end of this section. Could my opponents be right? Partly right? Is there truth or merit in their position or argument? Is my reaction one that will relieve the problem? Will my reactions drive my opponent further away or draw them close to me? Will my reaction elevate the estimation good people have of me? Will I win or lose? What price will I have to pay if I win? If I'm quiet about it, will the disagreement blow over? Is this difficult situation an opportunity for me? Or I might add to that, an opportunity for God to work on them through me, or maybe God to work on me through them. So what follows in the book is about 50 pages of a handful of different principles, and they're all kind of related to the list that you just heard. But in amongst them are 3 really great little tidbits that I want to finish with today. And the first one is to begin in a friendly way. No matter who it is, no matter what has happened, no matter what needs to be addressed, those initial decisions, like I said very early in the episode, body language, tone, first chosen words, especially if you are an initiator of the conversation, are crucial. They're kind of like the first round of a golf tournament. You can't win the whole thing on day one, but you sure can lose it. But I really got to thinking about this one and wanted to talk to you about the fakeness that often kind of facilitates a hollow version of this point. I remember going to lunch with a guy a couple of years ago. He said he wanted to talk. We started super cordially. He was kind. He was asking questions. He wanted to know what was going on with my kids. We spent 10 really friendly minutes, and it was nice. And then the guy looks down to sip his coffee, and when he looks up, it's like his eyes had changed, like a madman had taken over. And he just switched into a different person and became very direct and abrasive. And I remember feeling so confused, like I thought we were friends and we were going to enter into the disagreement in a friendly way, and it made that whole first 10 minutes feel really fake. And it hit me that I've done this before as well. I need to deal with something hard with you, so I'm going to be really nice for a few minutes and then switch over and go at it. And that's not helpful. Be friendly, kind, brotherly, and cordial, not just as a warm-up act for the main event, but actually as you enter into discussion of those more important things. Be friendly and expect the best until the other person makes that impossible. Number 2, never say, quote, "you're wrong." Now, this goes along with some of what we've heard already. When we say something like that, we immediately trigger their defense mechanism, and it usually goes the wrong way from there. If I walk up to you and I go, "Hey, on this thing right here, you're wrong," I better know what I'm talking about. And I cannot even tell you how many times I've seen people say this when they did not know what they were saying. They needed like a half an hour of listening before they ever got to that level. And even if the other person is wrong, let's assume this is a really important deal. Maybe they're doing something sinful and you need to try to help them out of it. And they are wrong. Pushing them, hoping they'll fall over, is not a good strategy. And by the way, we're not saying do the opposite of this. Never say you're wrong. Just ignore things. We're saying do the hard work. Start with the right attitude. Start with yes, agreeable things. Be a good listener. Ask good questions. Challenge them to think. And maybe use wording that gives a better course of action following that statement. Instead of saying you're wrong, maybe I say, "I disagree with you on this." And maybe that's because I don't fully understand what you're saying, but I would like to share with you some of the things that I believe on this. Please remember, the goal here isn't to win an argument. The goal here is to avoid an argument and win your brother or friend or spouse. And then lastly, and I think as believers in Christ, this is a great place to finish, appeal to nobler motives. And really, this just means elevating things beyond just focusing on oneself. If I'm in a disagreement with you and my motive is to win and your motive is to win and I care about me and my pride and you care about you and your pride, we are toast. I don't see any way out of that. A nobler motive would be to care about the other person. If I went into a very difficult conversation with a family member after long-standing problems and I genuinely was motivated by trying to help them or ease their guilt, and maybe by showing that, I convinced them to care at least a little bit about me. Our motives for the way that we talk and live are outside of ourselves and everything gets better. Carnegie talks a bit about this, and I agree. I think people want to be unselfish in heart. We all instinctively know that if my motive is just me, and if the whole world operated that way, it would all be on fire. But maybe the way we converse with others, we can help with that. Of course, motives get a lot nobler than just the two people involved. If we can use conversation to begin caring about how we affect other people, how does our resolution here affect our families, or the people that we worship with, or anyone who is watching or who will be affected by the outcome? That's nobler than self, and behavior improves. And of course, above all else, is God. If I care about God and I want to please God, and you care about God and you want to please God, and we share that, we've got a big yes in common. We share a massive agreement. And while the nobility of doing what is right for God has caused people to treat people kind of crummy, actually, going all the way back to Jesus, when mixed in with all of these approaches we've talked about today, and we're able to mix together love of God and love of neighbor, both of which over myself, well, maybe we can avoid a great deal of disagreements, and we can turn potential disaster into an opportunity to glorify God. And who knows, if we get it just right, somewhere along the way, we may even win friends and influence people. Thank you for joining us today. If you found value in this episode, consider sharing it with a friend. And speaking of friends, if you have any mortgage-related needs, whether you're a first-time home buyer, exploring refinancing options, or dreaming of future home ownership goals, reach out to Tyler Cain. He's a senior loan officer at Statewide Mortgage. This company is founded by a fellow believer in Louisville, Kentucky, and is dedicated to helping families achieve their dreams of home ownership. Tyler offers 20 years of expertise and dedication to guide you through every step of the process. You can find Tyler's website link in our show notes or contact him directly at 813-380-8487. And always remember, whatever you do in the name of Jesus Christ, excel still more.